I love it.
So, Robbie, what I thought we'd do, man, since we've already had 2 sessions, what do you think about just doing like a 30-second overview for the first and then another one for the second session? I'm pulling up the outline now just to
Cool.
have a refresher. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Do you want me to kick it off and kind of go through a
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. So first off, appreciate all of you guys joining. Usually Barry says this, but I'll since he's pulling some stuff up, I'll make sure to do it. If you guys have any questions or anything, make sure to post in the comments. We'll usually take about the last 5 to 10 minutes of these calls, whatever the heck we call these things these days, these live streams, and we'll make sure to try to get to some of your questions. To really kind of give a recap, let's talk about where we've been, right? First off, it's always fun. Barry, I still don't see that edamame, so step up your game over there. The Uber Eats is bringing it, right? It's always fun to talk with Barry because him and I jive so well. We both wear flat bill hats, and we're kind of nerds, and that's a good thing. I say that in the best way possible. But so far, where we've gone is we started off by talking about mindset. Right, we took the first hour-long call, and honestly, it's the most foundational because everything else that people have been learning, all the questions they're going to learn, all the scripts that they're going to learn from us, the tactics, none of that stuff matters if your mindset's in the gutter, if your mind's in the wrong place. And that's why we started there. And really the big things that we talked about was letting go of the attachment to the outcome, focusing and refocusing the conversation on them and what they're hoping to do, and making it not about you at all. And every single top lead converter I've ever met, that's their philosophy every single time. They're not the most scripted, well-versed person. The people converting leads at the highest level they've shifted the conversation away from being about them as the ISA or the team or agents towards being about the lead. So that's the first thing. That's the mindset piece. And then our second hour-long call we did, it was all about reframing the conversation, which was really, instead of us just talking about, there it is, look at that, Uber Eats, man, look at what they do these days. So the reframing of the conversation was shifting it from being all about real estate and framing it to be about the lead. And really, we talked about the questions that we're asking. And some of the key things you probably would have taken away was you got to get very comfortable not answering people's questions and turning it into questions. And that's tough. Mm-hmm. It seems really awkward at first. It feels like you're being, an a-hole kind of in some ways. And really what you're doing is you're just changing the conversation towards being about them. Because service at the highest level is not about giving out information. That's where people go wrong in real estate. Is they think with real estate leads, your value proposition is just giving out information. I have a news flash for you. That's what Google is for, my friends. And they can go and search those things. They can find it, and any realtor can do that. High levels of service is changing it from being about being a disseminator of information or being the gatekeeper of information towards being the person they trust to help them get what they need, want, or desire. And you start that by reframing the conversation. And today, I love Kiwi's gift for this, by the way, in the Wild Up with Success community. We're going to be talking about digging deeper, why you need to do it, and how you do it. So we're going to be going through all those things. I'm excited for it, man. So, Barry, I'll turn it over to you.
No, absolutely. The thing that I took away from the first 2 sessions that I really enjoyed was really, I kind of got retrospective a little bit. And the more successful I become, I feel like the less, like when someone asks me a question, not normally, but many times I find myself actually not answering the question. And I tell them that's not the right question to ask. I'm leading them. I'm not assuming that they know more than me. I'm assuming that I can add value for them. And so by reframing the conversation, we're not being jerks. We're actually advisors at that moment. Like when I think about the most successful attorneys and CPAs and doctors, when I come in to see them, they're not like, tell me what you want me to do today. Like that's actually illegal if you go to a doctor and he says that about drugs. You know what I mean? Like you can't. So what do you want to order today? That's a drug deal. That's not medicine. Like they're prescribing behavior. You know what I'm saying? Correct. And so when we talk about these things, don't be afraid to just not do whatever they want, because if I do that, I'm wrongly assuming that they know more than me about this subject, and they don't. And honestly, this session here, about not having surface answers, is one of my favorite topics. So I'm really excited to hear about just some different things that, Robbie, some different techniques and the mindset behind not being surface. And I know that there's a few things that I do as well. And so let's just dig in, because I feel like this is a problem. Like, we don't have in-depth conversations with the leads, not like we should.
Yeah. And I think we do it for a couple different reasons. I'm going to first name one of the biggest reasons I've encountered in people is we're afraid to dig deeper because for one of two reasons. One is we think it's getting too personal. That's one of the biggest things. So we think that these people don't want to talk about their story, what they're going through, their real motivation. We think they don't want to talk about that. And that is blatantly wrong. And we'll talk about why that's wrong today. The second biggest reason I've heard is these people just want to rush off the phone and they just want information. And there's an element to that. If they think that you're just some salesperson, they think that's your value proposition, that's how they're going to treat you. And for us, that's the whole point of reframing the conversation, is to avoid that pitfall of being that gatekeeper, and that's it. You are who you think you are. And it's funny, right? I found a way to tie in something Barry and I were chatting about before for the call today. And I am a huge believer of the philosophy of I am. And you define who you're going to be. For us, we're not interested in being that person that just goes and open doors for people. That's not who we are. We're interested in being deeply curious individuals who want to find out the depths of what's motivating you to do something, so we can best understand and create a plan to help you get what you want. Like, that's all we're trying to do. Like, that is the core of great salespeople. And I don't care if you're a doctor. Doctors are just salespeople, right? They're selling you on how do you heal yourself. Let's be real. Dan Pink wrote a great book about this, by the way, that everybody's in sales in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes you're selling a product. Sometimes you're selling ideas, right? And for us, we're more in the service industry, and we're selling ideas that people need to buy into. And really what it comes down to is this. When it comes to us avoiding digging deeper, we think we're inconveniencing somebody else. That's what we think is happening, is that we're inconveniencing them by having a prolonged conversation. And I would actually argue the biggest inconvenience you can do for them is just be a gatekeeper of information. And the biggest reason is the moment you tell them something that they're not interested in, they want to check out and get off the phone, or they don't text you back. I've seen this happen all the time, right? If you're talking to a lead and they're interested in a home and they ask how many bedrooms there are and you say 4 and they want 5, that conversation dies. And that's because your value proposition in that conversation, because you pigeonholed it, is being a gatekeeper of information. So, Barry, you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was talking to an agent on our team that one of the ways we route certain scenarios is through the inbound phone call. So we call the agent, they answer, press 1, and then it calls the lead. Mm-hmm. And she said, look, I'm getting these calls at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning or 9 o'clock at night. She's like, I really don't want them. So I went through how to adjust the settings. And I said, let me tell you something. I said, I wouldn't want to call a lead at 8 o'clock in the morning either on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning. I said, and so if I did it, I'd be apologizing the whole time. And that's why I want you to filter it off, because that's not authentic to who you are.
Correct. Yep.
And I said, but if you think Friday evening at 6 is the perfect time and that's when you'd want it, you're going to call and be like, hey, I got some news for you. Yeah. I said, so this is less about what's right or wrong in this instance. It's more about what's authentic for you. And something you said made me think of that story, because, if I'm approaching the conversation with, if I have valuable information or not, and I'm not sure if I have valuable information, I think I'm going to find myself apologizing, or I'm going to find myself, if I ask them a question and they say no, I'm going to think that, I'm not adding any additional value. I'm bothering them if I ask another question. But see, I approach it with, they don't know how valuable I am.
Correct.
They just don't know. And so I teach my agents, stop being surprised that they don't know how valuable you are. Let's just expect it.
Yeah.
Let's just expect them to think, I don't need you, agent. You're my
Mhm.
door opener. You are not my planner.
Yeah.
And man, so that's why, this topic is so important to me. But yeah, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. That's a really good point. I mean, here's the biggest thing. Let's roll this backwards for a minute. Let's talk about what people actually want. So let's say somebody inquires about a house. They're interested in 123 Main Street. We all think that the way we provide value is giving them access to information to that home. That's what we think is providing value. And I don't blame you. That's what Zillow is turning agents into, is you're the door opener, and that's the value you're bringing. But let me ask you this, Barry. What does that lead actually want? Really dig past the surface, because this is going to be the theme, my friends, today, is that we're digging past the surface. What does that person actually want, Barry? Do they want just to see that home? Is that it? There's always more, right? They want to buy the ideal home for themselves.
Mhm.
They really do. That's what they actually want, but they won't tell you that right away.
Right.
And here's the thing is, so many of us get stuck in the surface level conversation of playing the gatekeeper of information game, of just giving out information because we think we're going to inconvenience them. I do the opposite, right? If somebody has interest in a home, my value proposition I'm trying to figure out is, what is it that you want on a deeper level? And this is what I've learned is, I don't care, and we're going to do a whole call on mirroring and matching later. What I've learned is, I don't care if I'm talking to a 99D, a 99S, which tend to be polar opposites, right? People will always open up if you ask them questions and give them space, and you do it in the manner that speaks to them. And again, we're going to do a whole call on mirroring and matching on our, I think it's next. I don't remember which one it is. But really the whole point behind this is, when I'm talking to somebody, I'm trying to create a value proposition. And this ties into the last call, and we're going to start getting into the digging deeper here in a second. I don't want to pigeonhole my value proposition to being that door opener. I want to create the value proposition of aligning myself with helping them get what they actually want. What they actually want, again, is not just to get into that house. That is a symptom of a much bigger desire. Their desire is they have these dreams about the house that they want. And those dreams are always changing. They're complicated. It's a dream. It's emotional, right? Barry, your dreams, they're emotional. It's an integration of logic and emotions that create our dreams. And for me, I've found that I can more effectively get somebody what they actually want by taking a little bit of time and having the bravery of being willing to inconvenience them and ask some more questions. Now, here's what it really comes down to, right? The biggest reason, frankly, that it's so key to dig deeper is your mind, like we've said before, is constantly making assumptions. If you haven't heard this before, the reality is, you sitting here listening to me right now and listening to Barry, every single one of you is hearing something differently. And it's because you're hardwired differently, you have a different upbringing, and your internal definition of the words I'm saying and my facial expressions can mean drastically different things, right? I don't know if I've shared this with you, but a really great example of this is, when somebody speaks loudly to me, I'm comfortable around it. I'm very comfortable around it. Want to know why? My mom is an extremely loud woman. I've been conditioned. So when people are loud around me, I respect it. My wife, on the other hand, she grew up in a household that was more soft-spoken. And it's not to say one is right or wrong. They're just different. And this is just an example of little things, right? When we're engaging in communication, how we can be assumptive. Somebody's being loud. They got to be, they're an a-hole. They're mean, right? It's not true at all. For me, what I've learned, I have to eliminate and try to avoid all assumptive in my mind. I have to try to avoid it. And the only way I've learned to do this in any effective manner, Barry, is I literally have to keep asking myself, what does that actually mean? It's a question I try to train people on all the time is when I'm engaged in a conversation, keep digging deeper until you can answer with 100% certainty what something actually means. Because if you don't know, what happens is you accidentally make an assumption. And it's not that you're mean, it's not that you're trying to make somebody angry, it's not that you're trying to frustrate someone. But what does happen when you make assumptions is you do alienate people. It pushes people away. So instead, digging deeper is first admitting that maybe what you're hearing isn't what they actually mean. And so many people are afraid of digging deeper to the point where when somebody brings something up, I'll ask another question and they'll get to the point where like, nope, that's it. They'll be like, no, that's it. That's when I stop digging because I know I've hit rock bottom. I'm good. I don't have to dig any deeper. So what are your thoughts, Barry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're spot on. And I know for me, I don't meet many people that are even aware of what's motivating them. And so they call about a house and, I'm trying to figure out what's motivating them and they have no idea, nor many are even concerned about it. They just know that, for whatever reason they're interested in a house. And, I enjoy being working with a professional that helps me think, that leads me to new places, and I mean, I don't remember if I said it last time, but if you hire a therapist, that's all they're doing. They're asking you questions and trying to get you to go to that place. And so, rather than thinking, oh, this person is not going to like what I'm saying, because honestly, if you start trying to figure out their emotion and asking them questions to get them to figure out for themselves, that's not normal, first of all, not just in real estate, but in life, that's just not normal. And there might be a moment where they might hesitate. And you just have to recognize that you're doing good by this person, by helping them think through. I remember the first time my wife and I did like a mini marriage counseling session with somebody, is like a checkup type deal. I left, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I learned so much, not only about myself, but my wife and our marriage. And like, I was like, can we go back? Like, this is amazing. And so recognize that as a guide, as a counselor, I think it's your highest and best form of your role. I think if you've relegated your role to what time do you want to see the home, I'll be there to open it up. That's not the highest and best use. And you're not going to get as many clients working with you because it's honestly not that valuable. Correct. What's valuable is taking somebody that's in their infancy, that doesn't know what they want, doesn't know what's motivating them, and having an authentic conversation. And eventually I'm going to share some questions that we use that I talk about all the time to help surface that. But right now is not the time. But this is I think this topic right now is the difference between converting leads that are not a showing request, basically. I think if you're good at this, you're gonna climb up the tree to get the higher hanging fruit. I think it's just a natural consequence.
Well, dude, and to layer into that, because what you just said is absolute gold. What you're doing is you're really helping them make the best long-term decision for them. What this means, by the way, is sometimes through this conversation becomes blatantly obvious that they shouldn't, one, be viewing the home maybe they're interested in, two, maybe they shouldn't be buying a home at all. And again, this is why it's so key to be 100% detached from the outcome, because then you push towards something that frustrates them. And when you do that, you accidentally make somebody frustrated that could be a 6-month, 12-month, 18-month opportunity. But you're exactly right. I've always told people that their ideas, if you're doing your job right, their thoughts and feelings, they should be changing in your conversation, right? A lot of people say buyers are liars. That's the worst statement I've ever heard. Salespeople are just really terrible. Real estate salespeople are terrible at asking questions. Let's own who we are. The reality is my interest. If I want to earn people's trust, and if I want to provide the best level of service possible and create massive cheerleaders out in the community for us that keep referring us opportunities, it's not going to be from me just opening a door. Albeit we will do that for the right people all day long. But the value proposition comes from you being a counselor that helps them process their ideas that they're working through and those emotions and feelings. And you're 100% right. You hit on something and you went quick, that there's almost like this pause. This is what happens. Barry, you can probably relate to this. There's this pause every time you're speaking to somebody where you ask that question, and it's almost like oh crap, am I about to share this information? And it feels like 10 minutes, and it's usually about 1 second, by the way, if you ever listen to recordings. But it feels when you're in it like, holy gosh, what's about to happen? And usually it's a pause and they take a breath. And then it comes out. And you'll actually see their demeanor change a lot of times. Maybe if they're a high D, they become an S. Maybe if they're an S, they become a D, or like a change happens. And it's because if you want to really convert leads at a higher level, what you're doing is you're helping them process their own thoughts and ideas. Because like you said, there's not people that are willing to have these conversations. There's not people that, you don't even do this with your friends and family unless you're going through tragedy. And here's what I've learned is I call this wow service, because what happens is when you get off the phone with this person, they literally say, wow, what just happened? They're like, how? Who is Barry? Why did I just tell him that the reason I'm buying a home is because my wife just cheated on me with my brother and I want to go in and beat the living heck out of him? Why did I just tell some random dude over the phone I don't know that? And you want to know why it is? Because he trusted you. One of my favorite things I like to do is trust is an emotion, right? It's not a logical idea. Trust is emotional. And emotions are extremely difficult to explain. My favorite thing I like to do with my clients is I'll say, so who's your spouse? Who are you married to, right? And I'll do that. And then I'll ask people, well, why do you love them? And dude, guess what happens? I hear crickets. You love this person. You have kids with this person. You've been with them for 20 years. Want to know why? Love is a feeling. Feelings are tough to articulate and explain. They take time. So the big thing I'm getting at is trust is a feeling, right? You don't earn trust by telling them you're the best. You don't earn trust by opening a door, although that shows competency. Yes, it does. But the way you earn people's business is by them trusting you. The way you earn trust is by making this conversation all about them, by allowing them to open up. And sure, not every conversation is going to have this deep, somebody died or something really painful happened. But every single person is run by emotion. Sometimes that emotion is negative. And by negative, I mean it seems negative, right? They went through hell. They're going through something painful. They're trying to avoid pain. Really what it comes down to is everybody's either trying to avoid pain or gain pleasure, right? They want a bigger home because they think it's going to provide some value to their life. They're trying to avoid pain because they are currently living in a house that reminds them of their ex-husband and they can't live there anymore, right? Every single human being, it's very, very simple, is always pursuing one of those two things. My goal is I want to find that out. So hopefully you all are seeing this because we're about to dive into how do you do it here in a second. But this is the why behind you got to dig deeper. You got to ask more questions. You do it because you're earning people's trust. By earning people's trust, you're actually allowed to move so much quicker. You will anticipate their move with more effectiveness. By slowing down, you end up providing a much higher level of service. You end up serving them a ton better, and you run quicker in the long run. In the short term, you're slowing down, and you're slowing down to speed up. So that's just my ending
I
thoughts.
love the analogy about the, you know, pleasure, or, you know, just the opposite extremes that most people or everyone's running off of
Yep.
from an emotional standpoint. And it's funny for me to think back when I was selling a lot of real estate on my own. You know, I just really like teaching. I really like helping people. Like I really, really like, and so they would tell me something stupid. Nobody taught me how to do this. I would hear them tell me a horrible plan. And I'm like, that's not a good plan. Do you mind? I mean, I know you don't know me, but do you mind if I tell you why? And so and then now looking back, I'm like, wow, that was an incredible sales method. And I just kind of fell into it because I was, you know, motivated by good things. And so I think this is a great moment for us to talk about what that looks like, because not everybody has this, you know, emotional desire to serve. I mean, you know, everybody does at a certain point, but not, you know, some aren't driven by it. So what are some things, you know, what should we do to kind of grow that?
Yeah, so there's a couple key things, right? Let's start with number one. I tell everyone this, that the best script in the book, especially to dig deeper, is tell me more. And really what that means is that it's more of a mindset. And I'm going to give you some of the different ways you can ask it. Really tell me more is a mindset, meaning when somebody tells you something, don't just checklist them and move on to your next question. I see this a lot in real estate. Somebody says something like, well, I want to get a bigger home because our family's on the grow. Great. How many square feet do you want? They keep going into the next checklist. I see it all the time. And I'm like, you're no better than a Google form, frankly. Google Forms can do what you're doing right now. Sorry, friend. For me, the human experience, I don't care if you're texting or your voice of voice, is when somebody says something and you don't know what it means, try to find out what depth there is behind it, right? You want a bigger home. Help me understand that. So write these things down, friends. So these are just some random ways to ask, tell me more. I love doing this. Guess what number one is, Barry?
Tell me
more. Right?
Which is a great one, by the way.
It is, 100%. Now, that does not mean you just sit there and say, tell me more, Barry. Tell me more, Barry. Tell me more, Barry. Now you're a robot. All right? Can't do that either. Here are some other things that I've learned, different ways I've learned to say, tell me more. So tell me more is number one. Number two, if you're down in Texas, you can be direct and be like, say more. Okay? If somebody's very direct, say more about that. Number three, help me understand that a little bit better. Help me understand that a little bit better. Number four, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you? Number five, can you explain that a bit further? All right. Number six, this is my favorite. Don't say anything at all. Silence.
It's so scary.
Very, right? It's funny. People fill a space. The point is, you'll notice that my questions aren't these profound, crazy things. They're just simply ways of giving permission to others to ask or to give me more of an answer. Now, what I will tell you is you need to pair the tell me more mindset with something that Stephen Covey calls rephrasing and reflecting. All right? You ever heard of rephrasing and reflecting, Barry?
Yeah.
Okay. So rephrasing and reflecting, right, is when somebody says something, say it back to them in some way, shape, or form. Don't repeat it, but rephrase it. So somebody said, I'm looking to get a bigger home. I say, okay, bigger home, right? I would just mention it real quick, right? And actually, this is one of the things that I taught the AI with the Hatch ISA to do was rephrase and reflect periodically through the conversation. And it's crazy. Like it will literally say, all right, so you want blank, blank, and blank, and blank. Is there anything else you want in your next home? It'll ask things like that, and it's rephrasing it. But what rephrasing does is it shows the person you're speaking to, hey, I hear you. I got you. I hear it. One of the most powerful things you can do. Secondly, reflecting is hitting on the feeling that they may be brought up, right? The point behind rephrasing and reflecting is simply this, though. It's one, to buy you some time until you know what you're going to ask next. That's my favorite thing about it. Buys you some time. But secondly, my other favorite thing about it is it connects what they just said to your next question, right? It's the connector between the two. So oftentimes what I'll do is if somebody says something and they're like, well, I'm looking to get a bigger home, I'll say, okay, Barry, so you want to get a bigger place, right? I'll put my own spin on it, right? Every single time. So you want to get a bigger place. Help me understand that a bit better. It's really that simple. Now, I think I brought up last time that one of the worst things you can do is be a left fielder in real estate. What I mean by that is Barry says he wants a bigger home. I say, okay, you want a bigger home? How many kids you got? Because then Barry's like, bro, chill. I didn't tell you I have any kids. I didn't say anything about that. But if I say, all right, Barry, and it's the power of open-ended questions, right? All right, Barry, so you want a bigger home. Help me understand that a bit better. And then you tell me, well, our family's on the grow. I'll say, okay, what does that mean? There you go. That's number 7, by the way. What does that mean? These just come out. I don't even know what I'm saying half the time. What does that mean, right? And then you say, well, we're in Barry's case. If you all don't know, Barry fosters children, and it's super cool because I can't think of a better role model out there, and it's so cool that you guys have volunteered to do that and take other people on. It's one of the coolest things that I've learned about Barry, and I'm outing you right now. I hope you don't mind. But Barry is an incredible human being who is literally taking on children to help raise and grow and help people become better human beings, which is one of the most admirable things you can do. And I'm sure it's not convenient. I guarantee that. But the point is, if you and I are engaging in this conversation, I'm giving you the space and giving you the story to tell me about that.
Right.
And I'm letting you tell me. And that's where the power comes from is I'm letting you tell those stories. And I'm seeing these things. I'm seeing that this is important to you. So it's little things like, our family's on the grow. Well, how many kids are you having? Or stuff like that. And then I find out I'm this, I find out you're actually not having kids. You're fostering them. Well, that's different. And now I look like an a-hole because I assumed. And it's little things like that. So that's the whole point.
No, you nailed it. You nailed it. It's very interesting to come from that curiosity. I mean, in the way that you're approaching it and the phrases, I think, put feet to this concept, because I think a lot of people, they want to come from curiosity, but they just don't know necessarily what that looks like. And sometimes what I'll do too is if what they're talking about is kind of either abstract or it's just not quite clear, or here's an easy example. They're just like crazy prepared. They're buying in 24 months and they've got this long-term goal. I'm going to stop and be like, okay, I'm very interested because I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. And you are planning 24 months out. How do you do that? Right. Like, and so I kind of denigrate myself so that I can be in a posture to receive from them. So now they're teaching me and I've given them permission. And in the process, I'm going to find out they don't have a plan. They're just overwhelmed. But it's by letting them, giving them a voice. And salespeople, the reason why people don't like salespeople is we don't give anybody a voice. We talk over them, we're closing. And that game is it just doesn't work.
Dead, man. That was, again, that used to work because we used to be the gatekeepers to all the information. That's just not the case anymore. That's a dying trend, and that value proposition is eroding. Frankly, if that's your value proposition, you will not have a business in a few years because people will find other ways to get information outside of just the world we're moving to.
Right, and I think we just need to it's not that we've lowered our position. I just think that we need to approach it with more humility, that if they want the square footage, the bed bath, they can just type it. They don't need us for that. Yeah. But I can't, I don't know if you guys have used the Google. So there's Siri, there's Amazon. Yep. I've got a device over here, so I'm not going to say the name. And then Google's got one. And, the difference between the Amazon one and the Google one can't reasons a lot better than the Amazon Alexa. Anyway, the Google one can actually have a little bit of interpretation and philosophical reasoning, whereas the other devices can't do that. But even then, still, it's still not that good.
Yeah.
If someone says to me, and I'm a robot, I'm buying in 24 months, that is great. Well, I'd love to be able to help you prepare for that. They're not going to pause and shift the conversation, but that's something that I can do because I'm human and I'm attempting to, unpack where they're at. I'm telling, like Robbie, what you've just shared, if people will take that approach, I think what would have taken 6 months for the person to figure out on their own, like, researching and trying to, they can find out in a matter of minutes by asking these types of questions and surfacing and let them just go. And it's a shame, but it's the reality. This is not normal. People don't do this. And so if you can do this, this is why you run the top ISAs in America. This is why you coach them. This is why you train some of the top teams. This is why I have the #1 team in Virginia. Like, this is because it works and it's so different. So I really want people to latch onto this. And could you quickly rattle off some of the the tell me mores, just the different variations again?
Yeah. Help me understand. Tell me more. Say more. Silence. What does that mean? Help me understand. Did I say that one already? It's literally just, they're very simple things. I think what we have to do, and first off, you hit something on the head that's so key, is AI can't do this yet, and I don't know if it ever will be able to, because AI doesn't have that emotional feeling that is almost impossible to articulate and understand. It's why the definition of being a human, right, is there's this one memory that stands out to me. Is I was watching ESPN, right? I think everyone will relate to this. And there was a foul ball that was hit by a baseball player. And that foul ball in this stadium crashes and barrels into a little toddler at a stadium. And watching it, like, it was just the crowd, like, went dead still, to the point where you can hear this little kid screaming. There's no words. It's chilling. Like, when there's silence and chills, that's human to me. Like, that is, and I don't even know, like, that's me trying to articulate something that is so much deeper than what we're giving it credit toward. You can call it God, you can call it faith. I don't even know what to call it. But for what you hit on, is it's human. It's when I am speechless when I see that, because there's no words that fix a lot of things. You don't need to fix things all the time. And man, you all suck at this. I know I suck at it when I'm speaking to my wife. I will take full ownership of that. But being human is just creating a safe space, right? It's creating a safe space where people can open up. And to be human is letting go of ego. And that, I think, is one of the most difficult things to do. It's letting go of the attachments, letting go of control, and it's just being there. It's one of the things that I don't know if we go, digging deeper. It's one of the most profound things you need to do is just be and just listen and truly listen. Don't listen because you're trying to sell them. Don't listen because you want to sell a house. Listen because Barry and his story, or somebody in their story, is a precious, beautiful gift that you're about to be given, and treat it like that. Don't just think it's an opportunity for you to go make some money. It's so much deeper than that. And when you approach things that way, it's the highest form of love you can give any other human being. And I promise you that when you do it, you will be able, you're going to hear, I guarantee you, go do this tomorrow. The universe, God, whatever you call it's going to put a story in front of you where you get to serve a human being at a level you never thought was possible. You get to be a savior for somebody. You get to be the person that listens to the story when they just went through the worst thing possible.
Yeah, so deep, man.
For the one last thing I want to add on that, Barry, is for me, it's when I call that dad who, and I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. When I call that dad who accidentally backed up over and killed his own child, am I honoring that? Am I creating a safe space to honor the discussion of that? Because if I can do that in that situation, in that call, I can do it in every call. And, one thing I haven't shared, Barry, I don't think I've shared this at all, is, and I'm not going to say names, there was this beautiful boy that went to my son's daycare. And they moved away. This was just this past year. Again, I'm not going to say his name, but I can visualize him. This was a kid that was at my son's birthday party in February of this year, or past year. So February 2020, I should actually say. They moved away. And from what I can tell, when they moved there, a month into them moving, again, they moved and uprooted their family all the way to the East Coast. I believe it was somewhere in Georgia. From what I can tell, was the mom was backing up in her vehicle, didn't see this precious little boy, and he got killed. And these people just went there. They just bought a house. For me, Barry, this is so much deeper of, honestly, my calling, dude, is to have conversations and influence others. So when you call his parents, you're not trying to push and manipulate and sell, because that's not what a human being needs in that moment. You need to create a safe space where they feel comfortable just talking about the worst thing. Because if you can do that, you're serving your fellow human beings at an incredibly high level where you're gaining trust. And dude, sometimes you're going to help people that don't need money. It's going to be sometimes or they're not going to be able to buy a home. You're going to be able to help do things where they can't buy a home. But to me, that's why I do this. Like when that happened, I just saw the tea leaves of that. It breaks my heart, first off. And I literally went to, right after it happened, I went to MSUM, which is where I go and do just a lot of random thinking. I know, random sidebar, I'm digressing. But that's where the daycare was, between where my son and this kid used to go to daycare. And I rode past, and I literally had to just get off my bike, and I wept. And I felt the calling of, I need to be willing to tell you all that this is so much bigger than just a real estate transaction every single time. These are people's livelihoods. They're their dreams. They're dash dreams. It's incredibly emotional. And I just want you all to just honor that, please. Like, if there's one thing you do, is honor that. And if you can find a way to do that, you are going to bring more love and peace to people that need it. You're going to attract really great opportunities to help people that don't have emotional stuff. But if you can do that, you're going to be living life at a much more rewarding level than you are now. So anyways, I'm going to quit.
Dude, that was moving. Honestly, like, I'm kind of taken aback. I think you care about strangers in an uncanny way. And I'm not saying we all can't do it and we all shouldn't do it, but like, I don't think I care about, not on an emotional level, but as people, care for people as much as you do. Now, I could be wrong, right? But I think that is an incredible example for all of us to follow. Whether we're in touch with how we feel, or whether we are motivated by good to help the common man, I think it's all something that we should strive for. And, I don't mean to relegate what you've shared to, phrases to convert leads, but like,
we can talk about that too, by the way.
Well, no, but like, because you've cared so much about people, you've learned how to get them to talk. And so, like, those phrases that you shared and when we asked you to repeat, those are really manifestations of caring. So, like, I
Mm,
think, and I think that a lot of people are really, they're good people.
yeah,
They're not the type of person that, the agent wants to push around, and they walk into a room and they, scream attention. And
yeah,
those are the agents that don't take that extra step. And I can't remember if I said this already, but when you're, I think I did, but I'll say it again. When you're thinking about yourself, because you're shy and you're afraid to like care about them, you're being selfish.
yeah,
And I'm advocating, and Robbie's advocating that you care more for those people,
yeah,
so that when they are on the phone with you, you actually can help.
yes,
But if you're calling them and you're afraid of that moment of silence, or if you're afraid of calling them out on their ridiculous plan or no plan, you got to understand why you're afraid. You're afraid because of your ego.
yes,
You're not motivated by that person. And I call it, it's the difference between the golden rule and the silver rule. The golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated. The silver rule is don't treat people the way you don't want to be treated. And most of us run off of the silver rule. We're like, I don't want to do what I don't. And so we're so afraid, instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to treat others. I want someone to challenge my thinking and make me broaden my horizons. So it's an incredible way to run your business, dude. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of share that, because that was powerful.
I appreciate it. And I don't know if I don't know if I care more or less than others. I think for me, I've realized a couple of things in my life, Barry. It's that for me, we're all brothers and sisters in some way, shape, or form. It's why I call people brother and sister, and I mean that.
Mhm.
I also can't remember people's names to save my life, so that helps. I'm terrible at it. But I really do care and love other people, and you can vehemently disagree. Like, one of my favorite things is when I was working in political campaigns, I relished the opportunity to learn about perspectives that were drastically different than mine. When people would bring up ideas that were the polar opposite of mine, most of us get angry. And what I've learned is that when I'm at my best self, I'm curious about it because there's a reason for it. I need to stop assuming that my perspective and what I think is better. The reality is they've gone through something in their life, and that's why they think it. And I want to see that. I want to understand it. And people will tell me this stuff, man. Because again, if you like, just really good examples is the reason people would maybe say something offensive, and I'm not giving permission to it, but oftentimes if we just took the time when somebody says something offensive to understand where's that coming from, we can help them process it so they can get past it. What we do instead is we judge. And when you judge, you don't grow. When you're judged, what you're naturally doing is you're saying, I'm above this. And you feel good for about 0.2 seconds. And then I guarantee you walk away from that conversation, you project, and ego comes out. And for me, I sidelight on all that stuff. I try to gain a better understanding at a truly deep level because I think every human story is different. And again, I really believe all humans are good. I think sometimes humans go through some things that cause them to do bad things. I believe hurting people hurt people. This is what I've learned every single time when people say offensive things. Hurting people hurt people. And for me, like, I'm not afraid of that. And it's why I love coaching. I love conversations. Why I love helping people is when people are angry, something happened that hurt them every single time. And for me, you can sit there and try to talk about why you shouldn't do that. But I've learned this, and if you're a parent, you can relate to this, that and the funny thing is, I don't care if it's you're talking to an 80-year-old, a 50-year-old, or a 3-year-old. Humans are humans. We oftentimes are symptomatic of a much bigger problem. We're acting out. And if you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old who's acting out, you can relate to this, where a kid acts out. And you try stopping the behavior. Maybe they're saying a swear word, right? I have a potty mouth, so that doesn't help. Although we started doing the whole hot sauce rule, the hot sauce threat, and now they won't say it, which is good. Funny story. But that's a story for a different day. We don't actually do it. And said, yeah, funny story. But when it comes to bad behavior, what I try to do, what I've done when I'm a bad parent is I'm authoritative, right? What I've found is that doesn't work because I'm trying to stamp out the symptom. The reality is when I am being the best dad and husband and friend and salesperson is I don't settle for surface level symptoms anymore. Rather, I dig past, I slow down, and if my kid is, acting out, being frustrated, moody, what it usually means is maybe my daughter got picked on at school by some kid in the library who said she couldn't read. Maybe another human being is going through something that's tough that's causing them to act out. My ego used to tell me all these other things I've just learned. None of that's true. I have to dig in deeper, and almost every time there's so much more depth behind the symptoms. And when you're talking to these other people, we used to call them leads, right? Leads are people. Your clients, don't label them things. No, that's Barry with a story. And if you're mad because Barry wanted to walk away from the closing table, that's your fault. Because you didn't slow down to find out where's Barry coming from, why is he doing this? And when people make irrational decisions, it's not because they're irrational, it's because you didn't take the time to understand what was motivating them. So that's the biggest thing I hope you all take from this is stop living up here. The depth is where the magic is, the whys. Because when you start to see those things, you can provide better service, you'll actually save more time, right? And you will help people at a much higher level and serve you other man at frankly, an unprecedented level. So,
yeah, no, that's so good, man. It's funny because when you're talking about this, so much is going through my mind. It's almost hard to retrieve it at the end. And I've often said that part of my job for my agents is to help them. My sales training is how not to be salesy, because good people, when they go, the worst scenario is when you are showing a for sale by owner and the homeowner's there and they follow you around the whole time and they're not in sales. They don't know how to sell. And so they're just like, oh yeah, we just bought that last year. Oh, yep, we got the warranty on this. Oh, yep. And it's just like, oh my gosh, let me think. And so good people sell horribly many times. And then, they become an agent because they want to serve, and then they think they need to sell. And so, coming from a good place of caring about others, most of these people are motivated by, they need to stay motivated by that. And that's something that you've brought out, I think, in this discussion is really the core. You've shared it beautifully about caring for others. Like, I think I'm going to come away from this a little bit better. But some things that I do because the consumer doesn't believe that I care about them.
correct.
All right. So I'm trying to get them to engage, but because people have different backgrounds and, the way they deal with people, some people don't believe me. And so some ways that I've brought out an authentic conversation is if they tell me a lame excuse. So, okay, I need to talk to my wife,
Yeah.
right? I'll say, oh man, that's great. Yeah, I'm married as well. I will tell you though, that's what I tell salespeople when I don't want to talk to them anymore. And if that's what you've done, that's fine. Like if you don't want me to talk, I don't have to call you guys later. Now, when you do this type of thing to stop the surface conversation, if you're not careful, you're rude. You come across as rude. So you've got to be very calm in your delivery. Another thing is like when they give you. So I had an agent this week call me and say, I got a really good Wailopo lead, almost a $500,000 buyer. They've got to sell a home. I said, okay, great. How'd it go? They like the wife, liked the house. The husband thinking about it. So how'd you leave it? He said, well, they told me they were going to go home and they were going to think about it. I said, okay, what are they going to think about?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't ask them that. And I like to mess with their heads. So I'm like, why didn't you care enough about to ask what they're thinking from? And he's like, because they're so motivated by bothering the person that they're not motivated. And I said, you know what I would have done? I would have said, listen, I run the risk of like not helping at all or being really annoying. So I'm just letting you know, I'm going to try to walk the middle of the road, Mr. Buyer or Mrs. Seller. So what I'd love to do is I'd love to hear what you're wrestling with so that maybe I can send data or, so that I can actually help and add value other than opening the door. So I tell them that.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, if you will just call it out, those lame excuses that we all get, and just have a real authentic conversation, you'll be surprised. People love it. It's refreshing.
Oh yeah.
I'm coming away from this conversation with you, Robbie, refreshed because of the amount of care that you have for others. I think it's awesome.
I appreciate that. And really, I think you're hitting on something that's key, that they're giving an objection. And for me, I've always learned that, again, an objection is a symptom of something else. My goal is to turn their objection into a question. And dude, this starts with like the beginning of a conversation. If someone's like, well, I don't trust real estate agents, right? The first thing I'll say is, honestly, I don't trust a lot of them either. But what makes you say that? And now I'm like, I'm on their side. I'm like, I'm their boy, Blue, right? Or they'll say something like, I want to work directly with the listing agent. You all think, well, that's a lot of us go into, well, that's a bad idea. Don't you need somebody representing you? Blah, 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 blah. And they don't listen to you because you haven't earned permission, right? What I do instead is, it's really simple. Y'all gonna be shocked by this. If someone said they want to work with the listing agent, you know what I say? Barry, why is that? And dude, it's honestly this simple. I'm not kidding people. It's this simple. Put a why or a what in front of their objection. 90% of the time, that solves it for you. You're overthinking it. Literally just ask them where it's coming from. Like, and then guess what? You know what they'll say? I want to work directly with the listing agent because I save money. And then, of course, I can be like, well, actually, Barry, can I tell you a little bit about that? And now they brought up that they were saving money, not me, which is 10 times more powerful, right? So you all need to stop settling, not just for surface level motivations, surface level objections, my friend. This is so much deeper.
Yeah.
Their objections in the questions. And y'all just, honestly, if I can sum this up, Barry, so many people operate on crappy information because they're in the surface level zone, right? I operate on much better information because when they tell me that they don't want to work with the listing agent because they got screwed in a deal 3 years ago, or they don't want to work with an agent because they got screwed by an agent 3 years ago, I'm going to tell them, dude, that sucks. That's terrible. I'm going to be empathetic and listen to it and hear it. I'm like, I don't want that to happen to you either. I get why you don't trust real estate agents. I don't trust them either. And now they're like, wait a second. You're a real estate agent? And they're drawn to you, right? Now, what you all do, here's what's crazy. A lot of people, when you're insecure about this stuff, if someone says something like they want to work with an agent who's really great at communicating, you then say, well, we're good at communicating. You got that covered. Don't do that, because then you're just like everybody else. Instead, show it. Be it. You don't need to sell people on it. Right? Someone's like, well, I'm an agent that communicates really well or something like that, hypothetically. I'll say, great, that's awesome. Why does that matter to you? Again, I just keep digging deeper. And then they tell me that communication matters because of X. So anyways.
Yeah. And I would say if somebody said they want an agent to communicate better, I would probably say there's probably a story behind that.
Yes. Amen. Yep.
Like you don't
understand that a bit better.
You don't wake up in the morning and think, I want an agent. I want an agent to communicate. Like, what happened? I want to know more. Like, so that I can avoid that same. And they're refreshed by it, dude. I think all these sessions have been good, but this one so far is my favorite.
I like it, brother.
This is really good, really good.
By the way, you have a new way to ask. Tell me more. I want to know more. That's dope. Look at that, Barry Jenkins doing the tell me more. He didn't even know he said it. But that's the thing. It's again, it's a mindset, and it just comes out. I want to know more about that. So, anyways.
What's up, boys? We are at the hour. Another one done and dusted.
We didn't even have time for questions. Sorry about that, y'all.
Yeah, the feedback in the group has been really good. People are like, really appreciating.
That's COVID here.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, right. They really don't care about you.
Oh.
Kiwi, I think, had to mute himself a little bit.
Oh,
all right, well, Kiwi, do we leave now? Can you sign? Can you throw me like a bone here? Like, what do we? Okay, we're done. Okay, all right, bye everybody. Thanks for joining.
Very, very lovely, brother. Thanks again for that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely.